In late 1932, the Government of Australia deployed the Royal Australian Artillery into the sun-baked scrubland of Western Australia. They were equipped with high-tech automatic weaponry, thousands of rounds of live ammunition, and a decisive mandate from the Minister of Defence. Their mission was not to repel a foreign naval invasion, nor was it to suppress an armed human rebellion. Their target was 20,000 flightless, 6-foot-tall birds. What followed over the next 6 weeks would go down as one of the most absurd, humiliating, and fascinating military engagements in modern human history. Facing an enemy armed only with dense plumage, rapid foot speed, and an uncanny knack for guerrilla warfare, the Australian military was outmaneuvered, outran, and decisively humiliated. How did a modern nation-state end up waging open warfare against its own national symbol, and how did a flock of birds manage to win? To understand the madness of the Great Emu War, we have to look back at the aftermath of the First World War. In the early 1920s, the Australian government implemented the Soldier Settlement Scheme. Thousands of returning veterans, many carrying physical and psychological scars from the trenches of Gallipoli and the Western Front, were given marginal plots of land in the remote Campion district of Western Australia. They were encouraged to clear the harsh scrubland and cultivate wheat. When the Great Depression struck in 1929, the Australian government urged these farmers to dramatically ramp up wheat production, promising price subsidies that never materialized. Wheat prices collapsed, leaving the veteran farmers financially devastated. Then, in the blistering winter of 1932, an unexpected crisis made things exponentially worse. The emu, a giant native bird that regularly migrates inland after breeding season, found the newly cleared, irrigated farmland of Campion to be an absolute paradise. Approximately 20,000 emus invaded the agricultural heartland. They trampled standing crops, gouged massive holes in the state rabbit-proof fences, and devoured precious wheat fields down to the bare dirt. The farmers, having exhausted their standard ammunition and facing total financial ruin, gathered in desperation. As former soldiers, they knew the destructive power of modern military hardware. They sent a delegation to Canberra to meet directly with the Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce. Pearce, sensing an easy political victory to placate angry rural voters and provide target practice for his troops, agreed to deploy the military. He dispatched Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, accompanied by Sergeant S. McMurray, Gunner J. O'Halloran, 2 Lewis automatic machine guns, and 10,000 rounds of .303 ammunition. The military campaign officially began in early November 1932. The troops had been delayed by heavy rainfall, but by November 2nd, they arrived near the town of Campion. When a flock of approximately 50 emus was spotted in the distance, local farmers attempted to herd the birds toward the hidden Lewis guns. The emus, however, demonstrated an immediate and baffling resistance to traditional military strategy. Rather than grouping tightly together like infantry, the birds scattered in all directions at speeds approaching 50 kilometers per hour. The gunners fired short bursts at extreme range, but the birds vanished into the brush, leaving behind only a handful of casualties. 2 days later, on November 4th, Major Meredith prepared an ambush that should have been devastating. Stationed near a local water dam, the military spotted a massive congregation of over 1,000 emus advancing directly toward their concealed position. Meredith ordered his men to hold their fire until the birds were within point-blank range. When the flock was just a few dozen yards away, the gunners opened up with a continuous stream of automatic fire. Yet, after firing only a dozen rounds, the Lewis gun suffered a catastrophic mechanical jam. The sudden noise sent the massive flock into total pandemonium. The emus scattered in small, erratic groups before the weapon could be cleared, leaving fewer than a dozen birds dead on the ground. Frustrated by their lack of mobility, Meredith decided to take an aggressive tactical leap. He mounted one of the heavy Lewis machine guns onto the bed of a flatbed truck to chase the birds down across the open plains. The plan proved utterly disastrous. The rugged Western Australian terrain was riddled with boulders, ditches, and hidden stumps. The truck bucked so violently that the gunner could not even sight the weapon, let alone pull the trigger accurately. To make matters worse, the emus effortlessly outran the vehicle across the uneven ground, and the pursuit ended when one fleeing emu became entangled in the steering gear, causing the truck to careen out of control and crash through a fence. By November 8th, just 6 days into the official offensive, the operation had degenerated into a public relations catastrophe. Major Meredith reported that his unit had expended 2,500 rounds of ammunition, roughly a quarter of their total supply, with confirmed bird kills estimated between 50 and 200. In the federal parliament, politicians mocked the deployment. Opposition member A.E. Green sarcastically inquired whether a campaign medal would be struck for the veterans of the conflict, while another member suggested the medal should rightfully go to the emus, who had won every round. Facing intense ridicule in the press, Defense Minister Pierce ordered an immediate withdrawal. But the emus did not cease their destruction. With the machine guns gone, the birds returned in even greater numbers, ravaging what remained of the harvest. Western Australia Premier James Mitchell threw his political weight behind the desperate farmers, and on November 12, Pierce ordered Meredith back into the field for a second campaign. The second phase, which lasted from November 13 to December 10, proved slightly more methodically organized. Meredith adopted a more patient ambush strategy near established watering holes. By the time the military finally packed up their weapons and retreated for good on December 10, Meredith claimed that 986 emus had been killed, utilizing nearly 10,000 rounds of ammunition. That equated to roughly 10 full-power rifle rounds expended for every single dead bird. When military historians and biologists examine the Great Emu War today, the question remains, how did an unarmed wildlife population utterly thwart a mechanized military unit? The answer lies in a combination of biological resilience, terrain, and profound tactical arrogance. Major Meredith himself begrudgingly noted the emu's incredible physical toughness, famously stating that if a military division possessed the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world, comparing them to tanks that could absorb lethal machine gun fire while continuing to sprint. Biologically, the emu's thick plumage absorbed shrapnel and masked vital organs, meaning that unless a shot hit the brain or spine directly, the bird could survive multiple non-lethal penetrations long enough to escape. Furthermore, the birds exhibited what observers called an instinctual command structure. Flocks were led by large, black-plumed male birds that stood 6 feet tall, acting as sentinels. The moment a threat appeared, the sentinel would emit a warning call, and the flock would splinter into dozens of autonomous subunits, entirely nullifying the area of effect suppression of an automatic machine gun. Today, the Great Emu War is remembered as a hilarious piece of historical trivia, but it carries a much more significant legacy regarding ecological policy and state governance. The government eventually realized that machine guns could not solve complex agricultural and environmental problems. Instead of deploying troops again, the state implemented a public bounty system in 1934, which proved far more lethal, claiming over 57,000 bounties in just 6 months. Later, the construction of massive, reinforced exclusion barrier fences provided the permanent separation farmers needed. The Great Emu War serves as a timeless reminder of what happens when human hubris clashes with the natural world, proving that nature often has tactics of its own that no military doctrine can overcome. What do you think is the most bizarre military operation in history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this dive into historical absurdities, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another episode.